Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the PressProsMagazine.com Huddle Show. I'm Bruce Hooley. That handsome gentleman in Fort Loramie colors is Sonny Folks, the managing editor of PressProsMagazine.com. If you love high school basketball, you have tuned into the right show. And if you like high school basketball knowledge, you have tuned in for the right guest. And let's bring her on. She is the head basketball coach of the Fort Loramie girls team, the defending state champions. And we are happy to have Coach Carla Siegel with us. Hi, Carla. How are you tonight?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
We're doing great. Great to have you with us.
I'm doing well. And if you notice, just for you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. You look good in red.
Little color coordination right there for the Redskins.
Excellent.
Absolutely. Well, Carla, I got a chance to see your team on Saturday, and I know Sonny has seen your team this year, and you play on Thursday night in the regionals. You have, I believe, the 7:30 game? I'm drawing a blank here, I think.
8 o'clock.
The 8 o'clock game, the second game of the night at Vandalia Butler. And you're against Country Day, and Country Day is a team that you ought to know pretty well, at least, some of their schemes, because this will be the third straight year you've played them in the tournament?
That is correct, yes. Their coach does a nice job. They've got some really great athletes. Zimmerman's a senior, she's back, and Mormon, and Zimmerman has two sisters that are sophomores that are playing, and Gracie Barnes is probably their leading scorer on their team. So very good athletes. They're going to throw a lot of presses and traps at us in the full court and half court like they did with Rishi. So we're going to be working on that and see if our girls can handle it.
Carla, let me ask you if you saw, I know you saw, if you didn't see the Rushi game live, you've seen tape of it. Did you see anything in the Rushi game that you didn't already know about Cincinnati Country Day?
Not really. I mean, I think the pressure got to Rishi a little bit. Maybe they weren't expecting that because Cincinnati Country Day doesn't do it all the time. I think they pick and choose when they're going to do this kind of things. When we played them last year in the districts, they're a very physical team. Some of their girls play soccer, and so that's on a different level. So we had to get our girls into that mindset last year of we have to match their intensity and their physicalness if we want to play with them. And so I thought that we did a good job with that last year, and even the year before when we played them in the regional finals.
Carla, I'm curious because they played Rushi, a team you know. Does it make the scouting of Country Day and what they can do maybe a little bit more applicable? Does it have any greater gravity to you as you scout them, seeing them against a team you know?
That we're familiar with?
Yeah.
Yeah. We were at that game watching it, and Coach Bremergen is nice enough to give me the film as well so we can break it down even more and look at certain scenarios of the game. But yeah, like we were scouting that game, watching both teams, not knowing who was going to win, and to know that we know what Rishi's good at and what Rishi was going to do, and to see how Cincinnati Country Day countered those things, that kind of gives us a mindset into what they're thinking of doing. So playing a familiar foe does help out. I mean, it's hard when you drive somewhere and you watch a team play another opponent that you don't know anything about, because you're trying to figure out why they're doing that and doing those things that they're doing. So I think it was good for our girls to be at that game, to watch Cincinnati Country Day, to see what the things that they were doing to cause havoc with the Rishi girls. So I'm hoping that, mentally our girls are stronger because of that.
Let me ask you what you do psychologically when you're number one in the state. You've been number one in the state almost for 3 years consecutively. I mean, nonstop. You're everybody's bullseye. And I know when you're dealing with 16 and 17-year-old girls, adolescents, that has to get in their head at some point, that pressure, that stress of knowing that everybody is out there to get you. I always think of you as being a master preparer and motivator and psychologist with kids that age, because you've played, you've coached for so long, and I think you understand people's psyches so well, particularly because you're in the classroom with them. Tell me what you do to get your kids over that hump of just being afraid of the unknown.
Well, I appreciate all the kind words, and I wish I could take all the credit for the way our girls play. But it started, like you said, 2 years ago when that group got the number one ranking and they were undefeated. And I would touch base with my captains, throughout, and I would just say, do we need to talk about this? Is it getting to you guys? And they would just look at me and say, no, we just want to play and win the next game, coach. That's it. We don't even talk about being undefeated. And we don't talk about the number one ranking. And the same thing happened last year. We had that big streak going on. And the same thing, I just meet with my captains, So, and then this year, the same thing. I said, do we have to talk about it, when we were undefeated before we lost to Liberty Benton? And the girls are like, nope, we don't even talk about that. We just want to play and win the next game. So I think if you go back to like the beginning of the season, when we talk about expectations, we talk about previous years. We talk about the tradition of Fort Loramie. And we talk about everybody wants to beat you. They're going to give you their best game. And how are you going to handle that and what you have to do? And I know you've heard me say this before, but we end our practices with get better every day. So, we want to start off our practice with, whatever we struggled with yesterday, we want to get better at it today. And so we have high expectations for our girls, and we want them to meet those expectations. And when they don't, it's okay. And we tell them that we're all allowed to have a bad day, but you got to do something better. And in our game against Bradford, I wasn't overly impressed with our second quarter. We outscored Bradford 12-2 or 12-10, sorry. And I was very frustrated at halftime. And I was just telling the girls, I said, when you make a mistake on the floor, I said, that is in my mind. I said, so do something on the other end that is in my mind. And I'm not thinking that, you're doing something wrong all the time. And the girls were like, oh yeah, that's a good idea. So I just, if you've been around enough of sports, you hear people talk about next play. And it's the next play. It's get better every day. It's move on. It's don't dwell on the bad things you do and don't dwell too much on the great things you do, because that's where you get stuck in quicksand and it's not good for you. So I think we set those expectations at the beginning of the season, and we just kind of reiterate those things as the year goes on.
Carla Siegel, the head coach of Fort Loramie.
Another thing that you hear often about Cincinnati basketball is the competition there is not as good as the competition you see on a nightly basis in the Shelby County League, in the MAC, and some of the teams that you play outside of the area, non-conference competition that you play.
Oh, there goes Sonny's internet. He'll be back. We're here with Carla Siegel, head coach at Fort Loramie. He was complaining about his internet before the show, Carla, and I told him it'd be fine. So that's not an unusual occurrence. One of the things that I found interesting as I watched you guys play Saturday at Troy, as I think Sonny's back with us now. Yep, there he is that, I recognize some faces from last year, but there are some new faces this year. And I was kind of interested after the game. It was pretty clear early on. You got out to 20-0 lead. You're going to win the game. You're going to win the district. And I was curious to see how your players received that. Were they going to be joyful, like a team that just won the district for the first time? Were they going to be matter of fact, like this is expected, we've done this before, not a big deal to cut down the nets of the district? And I found it very endearing, and I think it reflects well on you that that they enjoy this moment. You had a senior team last year. You have a couple seniors this year who are contributing a lot. You have a couple seniors who are contributing who I didn't really think played much last year, but Kara and Allison are playing now a lot more. You have a couple freshmen that are playing. You have some young players that are playing. But I thought that was neat that this was a unique experience for this team.
Well, yeah, I mean, people that aren't familiar with our program or our players, I think a lot of people at the beginning of the year are saying, well, Fort Loramie graduated 5 seniors last year. This is going to be a rebuilding year for them. And I think my seniors took that to heart, because they were like, no, we've been at this program for 3 or 4 years, and we know what it takes to be good. And we're not going to we're not going to be that team that everybody thinks that we are rebuilding. We want to continue the tradition of playing great basketball at Fort Loramie. And so they come to practice every day, and they are so awesome. The seniors are with the younger girls. And we are lucky that we have a lot of sister-cousin relationships on our team. I don't know if you caught on that, but we got the 2 Mesher girls. They're sisters. One's a junior, one's a freshman. Colleen Brandwee, her younger sister Avery is a freshman. We've got Jaden Rose and Alex Rose. They're cousins. Skylar Albers, you're not going to know this, but Skylar Albers and Ava Schultz is her cousin. So there's a lot of camaraderie and with these girls. And so the expectations are the younger kids want to help the senior girls have their best season ever. And the senior girls know that we need the younger girls. So they're pumping them along and encouraging them to do the best that they can. It's just, it is, like you said, it's wonderful. And that district title, yes, I think maybe a lot of people expected us to win. But I think these girls know that it's not something that you take lightly. Sorry, I got a visitor.
So who's your friend there, Carla?
Well, this is my cat, Jet. She's been with me for 3.5 years. And the funny story is I'm not even an animal person. So she was crying on my porch about 3 years ago, and I brought her in on a November day, and she hasn't left yet.
Well, you were describing some of the relationships of your kids on your team. I got to tell you, I had a flashback to last year when Dana Rose had such an awesome tournament for you last year. And when I saw, is it Ava on the line late in that game? Jaden Rose, rather.
Yes.
And I was like, okay, is that a sister or is that a cousin?
That would be a cousin.
Okay.
That would be a cousin, a first cousin. And Alex Rose, she's a sophomore that we just brought up for tournament, but she's related too. And they're all related to Darian Rose, who played many years ago. Jaden is a sister to Darian.
Well, Sonny's internet is back, so I know he's chomping at the bit to contribute here. So go ahead, Sonny.
Well, before I got bumped off, I wanted to ask you the question about competition that they play. And you hear so often that Division IV or III competition in Cincinnati isn't at the standard of what you play in the MAC and the Shelby County League and in teams like Ottawa, Glandorf, and places like that. What can you tell about the competition that Cincinnati Country Day has played, or does it even make any difference?
Well, I think it does, but I think, he's been around long enough that he's trying to do the right thing for his program. And he went down to a Florida tournament where he lost 2 of his 3 games. And so I give him a lot of credit because, he's trying to build, I guess, the word everybody uses is a culture there at Cincinnati Country Day. I mean, he's been to the district's regional finals now 3 years in a row. And so he's doing a good job. So you can't help the league that you're in, if you're in a league and the teams are down that year, that's not his problem. But when you're picking up non-league games to make your team better, make your program better, I have a lot of respect for those coaches. And I think he's doing that. But they don't play, as you have said. I think, up here, we play our league double round robin. That's hard every year. And then we are stacking our non-league games with the best teams in our area, whether it's the MAC, Ottawa, Glandorf, Liberty Benton, Lima, Bath, all those games that we pick up. It's whether you win or lose during the season is irrelevant. You want to play those tough games to get better, so it can help you when you get to the tournament run. And I think the last probably 8 to 10 years, I think it's been good for our program.
Another question I've never asked you, and I want to ask you this because I've known you a long time. Have you ever lost sleep the night before a big basketball game?
No. People always say to me, like, are you getting nervous for the game? And I'm really not a person that gets nervous until like 2-3 hours before a big game. I mean, today I'm not nervous. I have to teach. I've got, 20 kids in the classroom that need me. I've got laundry here to do at home. I got things going on, and I'm just getting through day by day, like everybody in the world. And then, so Thursday, when I leave the classroom and I come home to get something to eat or drink, I mean, I might start like, oh my goodness, like the game tonight, I hope my girls play well, it might hit me, but, no, I just, life is too hectic for me to worry about what's going to happen in a game 3-4 nights away. And I sleep really well. Now, there are times I don't sleep very well after a game if it's a bad one. So sometimes those can be rough nights. But no, I sleep pretty well nights before games. Luckily, knock on wood.
Carla, if you had to plot on a graph the trajectory of your team this year, has it been pretty steady up? Has there been a leveling off, a plateauing, and then a ascending again? Or how would you say, because you have a young team and you've incorporated a lot of new pieces, how has that gone?
That's a great question. I like that question. What's funny is I can't plot it because there's so many things like that. They do some things really great. So that's on an upward spot. That there's some things that we're stuck in mud, like the rotations on defense. I kind of spoke with you about that the other day. And sometimes I feel like, we're no better this week than we were last week, and then we'll play a game and they're all doing great. So we spike up, and then you play a game like Liberty Bet, and then you can't find anybody. So different parts of our game plan. Yes. Steady increase, doing great. Other parts, we get stagnant a little bit and it plateaus. But I think right now, this time of the year, it seems like whenever we win sectionals and we get ready for district week, it's just like the anticipation of winning big games, I don't know, and playing, and when other people are not playing, the level changes. The kids, I mean, in practice, they're listening to everything you say, they're asking questions, and maybe we didn't get that like 3 weeks ago. So I think right now, definitely on an upward slide, because everybody is locked in and everybody wants to do their part. And that includes the 14th and 15th girl, which know that they're not going to play, but they want to be they want to do, like what we call them, the country day players this week. They want to do what country day is doing so they can help our starters and our first couple of people off the bench do what they need to do in the game. So it's definitely a whole team camaraderie that's going on. That's really neat to see. And I do enjoy this time of the year because we watch a little bit of game film. We have a little bit of meetings, talk about some things to make sure that we're all in the same mindset going into our big game. So it's definitely a fun time of the year.
Well, Janice chimes in on Facebook and says the girls are so much fun to watch. And Rob has a question. He says, what is the secret formula for you playing underclassmen with experienced upperclassmen such as Ava? So how do you mix the inexperienced players with the experienced players?
Well, I mean, I think it starts in practices. I mean, when we are doing post and guards, my freshman post players are working with and against Ava Schultes. And they are doing, and I tell them, I said, watch what she's doing. You want to be as good as Ava, if not better. And so we just challenge them. And then the upperclassmen, like the other day, one of our post players did something that they never did. And I looked at Ava, I said, that's what you do. I said, how does that make you feel that, they're copying you, they're mimicking you, and they're going to help our team? She's like, I think it's a great feeling. And she just smiled real big. And, she gave that freshman girl a high five. So, I think when the season starts, we just talk about what is our goal. And it's not about freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and seniors. It's about a team journeying together, working together, challenging each other, and making each other better to get where you want to go. And they're all each other's biggest fans. There's no, I want to be better than you. There's no, this is my team, I'm going to score the points. It's, Ava Schultes, if she's double teamed, she's kicking it out to a freshman or a sophomore to shoot. I mean, that's just team mentality first. And I can preach it all I want, and you guys know that, but the players have to buy in and do it. And so I always tell my seniors at the beginning of the year, this is your year. I say, I'll be back next year. You're not. So this is your season. What do you want me to do? And how do you want me to help you to achieve your goals? And it's a senior laden team. And if they encourage and get everybody else involved, it can be very special.
You know what I get out of this? I'm just sitting here thinking about the secret of life and not stressing before big events is to have plenty of laundry to do and a cat. That's a wonderful combination. I would have never have guessed that. I've written this down. I've taken copious notes. I'm ready to meet life.
There you go.
Hey, Carla, I noticed you had 6 seniors come forward to accept the district championship trophy. They asked for captains. Do you have 6 captains, or do you have a couple of seniors that are captains?
We have 2 captains that were voted by their teammates. And so those are the ones that I, when decisions need to be made about something, I meet with them and talk with them and text them. But the seniors, collectively are the leaders of this team. And I've made that very clear throughout the year, at certain times with Riley. Riley's not one of our captains, but she is the point guard on the floor. And I said, you are the coach on the floor, and you need to make sure our team is ready for whatever play you're calling. If they're not, you need to get them there. So throughout the, like Aubrey Baker, she's a senior on this team. She's going to play college softball because that's her love, but she gives us her time and her talents. And she works hard, and she's a great kid, and so sometimes in practice, I'll just say, way to be a senior out there, way to practice hard every single day and helping us get better. So if you've been around my program, I love my seniors always, every year. If you can go through 4 years of Fort Loramie basketball, then you deserve my utmost respect, and all 6 of them have and do.
Well, I want to mention a young lady who played for the other team that you played on Saturday. And Sonny and I got to know Austie Miller a little bit last year during Bradford's run to the state championship. And, having done this as long as I've done it, kids just sort of at times stand out with their competitiveness and how they persevere through adversity. She had the ball in her hands a lot. You guys play great defense. She was under a lot of duress out there. I thought she kept her composure. And I took note of her. I just wonder, do you ever notice players on the other team? Or are you too intent watching your own team? Do you ever watch somebody play and come away with it like, wow, I'm going to remember that kid because the way they played, I was quite impressed with them.
Yeah. So, Aussie Miller is not in our conference. We don't play them during the season, but I scouted Bradford the week before. And this is when we shook hands at the beginning of the game and she ran over to me. I shook her hand. I said, "You're fun to watch," and I said, "Good luck today." And she just smiled. I think she was caught off guard, but the truth is the truth. I would love to have her on my team. I love her gritty play. I think she's very intelligent on the floor, she makes her other teammates look great. No, I oftentimes admire other players for what they can do for their team. And then sometimes, maybe not before the game, I say something, but maybe after the game and when we're walking through the handshake line, especially, if it's their last game and their career is ending, try to say something nice to them to let them know that, other people do recognize their work, their talents on the floor and what they do for the game of basketball.
Well, Carla, we appreciate you taking the time to join us. Sonny has popped back in. We'll see if his bandwidth holds out here. Lyle, would you like to ask her one final question?
I just have one closing question, and I've talked a little bit about this in the past years, given the fact that there are so many lopsided games in early rounds of the tournament, both boys and girls. Mm-hmm. Have we come to a point, you think, where it's time to rethink about how we qualify, if we or insist that some teams qualify for the state tournament like they used to do in football in order to play, to make it a more competitive, at least first couple of games, and maybe even to shorten the process of determining the champion, and thereby maybe giving kids a little time between the seasons, the fall and the winter and the winter and the spring. What are your feelings about that?
Well, everybody's entitled to play a tournament game in basketball. It's just the way it's always been. The lopsided scores are hard. And I know that I have taken some beatings over the years as to, why do I go and jump on the bracket first? Why doesn't Fort Loramie take a bye and let two weaker opponents play each other, let one of them get a victory? And I just think that, it's not fair to my girls to make them sit out 4 extra days. We're used to playing 2 games every week. That's the way our whole season is set up. And some weeks you play 3 games. And then to, ask my girls, because they play hard and they do well and they get the number 1 seed, that, we should have to take a bye. And the bottom line is we're going to play one of those teams anyways. So, I've also, some people that, disagree with me, I said, well, you don't have to be in the tournament. It's a choice you make, so if you're going to go in the tournament, you go in, I don't, what you're getting into, but I'm going to say this, and what people think Fort Loramie is always great. I've had 4 teams in my career that have finished, 10-10 or less. And we're not always the victors, but I've had some of those teams play number 1 seeded teams in the Sydney sectional, and we have won. They're very close games. Maybe we won by 2 or 4. And so, because I've had teams that have been 500, I would not want us to be excluded from the tournament just because, we had an injury early in the year and we had to work to try to get around that and develop some other players that maybe weren't varsity in November, but they became varsity players by January. So I guess I'm for, put everybody in it. But I think you're probably referring to more of the teams that have lesser wins than 10-10 probably. But I don't know. No matter what I say on this broadcast, people are probably getting their hairs all in shackles. So
well, I'm with you, Carla. Sonny likes to limit the field, but I think in basketball, everybody ought to get in. I think lopsided scores are unavoidable, and I'm fine with that. It's part of the deal. And I love tournament basketball. Love watching your team play. And we wish you well Thursday night. And
thank you. I just want to add one thing here. One thing that I really like when we're playing a team that maybe is a little bit weaker than we are. And, I think that, our program tries to do a good job of not running up scores and not doing things disrespectfully. We try to be as respectful as we can when we're playing those opponents. It means the world to me when a parent from the other community comes up to me in the hallway And as they're approaching me, I'm thinking, oh no, where's this going? And they'll say something like, you have a very nice team. Your girls play hard. They play the right way. You handled it, and we appreciate that. So that, reinforces that, okay, this game of basketball is a good thing, and in a game like that, some of my younger girls get to play. And when you talk about building a culture and you talk about building a tradition, sometimes it's those earlier games where I can get those freshmen and sophomores in, and they get a little bit of that taste of what this means to play on a tournament floor and the tournament action. And that spurs them to work hard over the summer for me. That's, I really want to play for her more next year. And it really kind of helps our program a lot, those types of games. And if you do it right, I think if a coach plays it right, it can be beneficial for more than just the winning team.
Well, Carla, thank you for coming on. Good luck with your laundry. And,
thank you.
And good luck Thursday night.
And Jet.
Thank you.
And you're always very gracious with your time. We appreciate that. And thank you. We'll see you Thursday night at Vandalia.
Sounds great. Thank you, guys. I appreciate the time.
There you go. Carla Siegel.
Good night, Carla. Thank you.
Head coach at Fort Loramie. And it's always fun to catch up with her. And I know there are probably people going, you didn't ask her about Tri-Village. No, we didn't ask her about Tri-Village because they're not playing Tri-Village. They'll play Tri-Village on Saturday if Fort Loramie wins Thursday and Tri-Village wins Thursday. And I've done enough question and answers with coaches to know that you ask them about the game they're getting ready to play. Not
one game at a time.
Not the game they might play. Both Brad Gray of Tri-Village and Carla Saturday were kind enough to indulge me in a tandem story about the fact that Loramie and Tri-Village have been sort of like two fighters on the same undercard who eventually are going to meet for the heavyweight title. We don't know that. That's everybody's assumption. I mean, they're obviously ranked 1 and 2 in the state, and they played last year in the regional semifinals. A lot's changed since then. Loramie has graduated a lot of mainstays off that team. Kenzie Holscher, Dana Rose, the girl who had the amazing game, Jaden Putoff, had an amazing game last year against Minster in the regional semifinals. And Riley Sagister is a much different player for Tri-Village right now. Megan Downing in the middle is a lot better basketball player. And so that'll be a very interesting matchup if we get to it. But they both have work to do on Thursday. And if they get their work done, then we'll see that game on Saturday afternoon at 1 o'clock.
Well, and I think you make a good point about saying the coaches always say one game at a time, because I have seen Loramie in that situation where they were presumed to be a winner or going to win, and they haven't, because for whatever reason, and you know this during tournament basketball, the rim shrinks some nights. Kids get the yips some nights because, they're 16, 17-year-old kids. There's a lot of things that can happen. Just ask Daniel Berger about what happened to him yesterday in the final round of the PGA tournament down in the Honda Classic. So it's human nature. Lots of things can happen, and they do happen in tournament basketball. To your point, though, and I would discuss this a little bit with you before we get off the air tonight. Carla said I'd hate to be 10-10 and excluded from the tournament. I'm not talking about 10-10 teams. I'm not talking about 8-12 teams. I'm talking about teams that don't win a requisite number of 3 or 4 games during the season. Now they're a 21 seed. You're throwing them in against a Tri-Village team, and they get thumped 90-6 or something like that. Those are the games where I think, I just question. And if you want incentive to get better, as she correctly said, I think your incentive is if you don't win 8 games in the regular season, you don't get in the tournament. There's your incentive to work hard during the summer to get better and to be a more competitive team next year, which makes the tournament, makes the competition, makes the experience much more valuable for everybody. Number one being the kids who play.
Yeah, I disagree, because I know that I can't eliminate scenarios like you're talking about. I do think there are rarely, but occasionally, someone who gets hurt and the team may not get to whatever that plateau is, that standard that you would arbitrarily set to get them in the tournament. My daughter's team this year was number 4 seed in D2. They played a team that doesn't even have a high school gym in the first round. And what I would say is, if you have a coach, and we're fortunate at Jonathan Alder this year, we have such a coach. Carla is that kind of a coach. Brad Gray is that kind of a coach. that you build a culture. And what you like to see in those kinds of games is the starters are not in for very long. When they go to the bench, how thrilled they are for their teammates who work hard in practice, never get out there, and get a chance to score and play meaningful minutes in a basketball game. So I do think there are abuses. There are going to be teams that, choose to run it up. You'll occasionally see scores like that. I don't think that's an issue in the areas that we cover. But I do think everybody ought to have a chance to get in if they want to. Carla seemed to indicate that you could opt out if you wanted to. As it concerns Tri-Village and Loramie, I was thinking, last year I felt like because of COVID the year before, which stopped the tournament when Loramie and Minster were literally on their way to play in the Final Four, I think Loramie last year they had to figure out, like, could they get past Minster? I remember that regional final, I think it was, or maybe that was a regional semifinal last year. I'm drawing a blank right now, but Minster jumped out on them, and then Loramie came back and won the game. And I felt like that was a moment where Loramie could kind of breathe, like, okay, we did it. We got past this team that has been this impediment to us winning a state title here lately. And I think for me this year, I wouldn't know if Brad Gray feels this way or if Carla feels this way. For me this year, Loramie feels like that kind of an impediment to Tri-Village. Tri-Village has been building towards something. They're a more mature team this year than they were a year ago. But I think the question that a lot of us have is, can they get past Fort Loramie? That's going to be an emotional hurdle for Tri-Village. Now, it's not the same Loramie team, but it's a very good Loramie team. And so that'll be interesting if they both win on Thursday and get to that Saturday afternoon regional final.
Well, I can't disagree with anything that you just said. I'm just saying, again, the process. And you and I will agree to disagree on this. But injuries aside, I just have never been in. And look, you played, I've played, and we have both been involved back in the day in some pretty good old-fashioned country thumpings.
Yeah.
And I can't ever remember getting beat 70-6 and walking away from that saying, well, at least I got to play in the tournament, or at least I got a T-shirt out of it. Or, boy, if I work harder next year, we might get beat by 50 instead of 60. I just think the incentive is still there and encouragement to kids to get better, to earn your way into the football playoffs, earn your way into the basketball tournament, earn your way into these things. And the way to do that is, again, if you have a requisite number of wins that you have to have, I think it makes competition better, it makes the experience better. And I have said for years, the overlapping seasons where you don't have at least a couple of weeks, maybe 3 weeks between to rest, to adjust, for your body to adjust to a different sport, different muscle groups. I think it's a good thing for kids. I think it's a healthy thing for kids. And I think it's a good thing for families as well. And I know you're a family guy.
Yep.
and you like to have more. And everybody says if we had more family time, I think it takes some of the pressure off everybody. And the number one thing it would benefit would be the kids themselves.
Well, I just know this. To lose in the district final in overtime last week was a crusher, and our family's still trying to get over it. So it's really going to be hard for these teams when they do bounce the ball for the last time. And
yeah, it is.
We've got a ton of boys games coming up. You're a busy man tomorrow night. You've got a triple header boys, Tri-Village boys. They've got designs on a state championship with Lane Sarver, head coach Josh Sagaster. They'll play Fayetteville Perry at 5:30. Fayetteville Perry's the team that the Tri-Village girls took the measure of on Saturday. So that'll be interesting to see how that one turns out. Botkins, which got out of the sectional at Garber Gym in Piqua on Saturday night against Russia. Very dominant performance by the defending state boys champions in Division IV. Botkins takes on Ripley. And then in the nightcap, we have Jackson Center. And I just inadvertently axed out of the email. Do you happen to know off the top of your head who Jackson Center is playing or not? They play the 9 o'clock game.
I don't. I just clicked my screen off of the bracket, so I don't have it here.
All right. Well, I'll get it for you here.
And I just it's not as easy to remember as much as I used to.
No, we also have tomorrow night. We have up in Wapakoneta, we have Marion Local and St. Henry, a MAC battle. They're going to Wapakoneta to play for a district championship up there. St. Henry has won 2 games in the postseason. including an upset of New Bremen, top-seeded New Bremen, on Friday night at Coldwater.
Well, let me say this about tomorrow night at UD Arena. You just talked about incentives, and you remember so well last year when a favored Tri-Village team, I think it was undefeated, got knocked out by Cedarville in a game where they played so poorly. And I know that Josh Sagister was disappointed. I know Lane Sarver and all those kids from Tri-Village were disappointed because they were in the midst of a magical run, a magical year. You talking about incentive to come back. I'm so interested to see them play tomorrow night because now with the district round, the rubber hits the road. Now you're playing those teams from out of your area, teams that you don't see on a regular basis. As I mentioned to Carla a little bit ago, kids are kids, and there is always in the human psyche a little bit of the fear of the unknown. And to see what that off season of work and regret and for what happened to them last year and the incentive to come back there and to atone this year for that, I'm very, very interested tomorrow night to see Sagister's kids, the Patriots from Tri-Village play, and I'm sure they're going to come out and put on a show. I'm not going to say they're going to win, but I'm sure they're going to come out and they're going to leave everything they've got on the court at UD Arena.
I think the question for me with the Tri-Village boys is they have been very Lane Sarver oriented when they get in trouble and need a basket. And last year against Cedarville, Lane had a game where he was not enough alone. He needed help. Will he get that help from, some of the other guys on their team? That's the one thing that I know, because you know that whoever plays Tri-Village is going to have the mindset that if they can stop Lane Sarver, they'll be able to get past Tri-Village. The nightcap is Jackson Center against Springfield Catholic. Springfield Catholic, I think, took out Shawnee on Saturday night at Troy. And then tomorrow night, too, we've got some monster regionals in Division I at Westerville South High School. Dublin Kaufman 23-1 against Pick Central 20-6, and then Gahanna Lincoln 16-8 against Reynoldsburg. Reynoldsburg has designs on a state title. So does Kaufman, for that matter. And Reynoldsburg's 22-2. Our Steve Blackledge will be covering that. John Hulkenberg will be shooting it. Then on Wednesday, we have two Division I boys district finals, I believe it is. Olentangy Liberty against Olentangy Orange at Marysville. That will be interesting because Orange beat Liberty on the final night of the regular season and knocked Liberty out of a division championship in the OCC. So Liberty said they wanted Orange again. They're going to get them. We'll find out how that goes. And then we have Dublin Jerome having its best year in a long time against Hilliard Davidson, a team that has won more close games at the buzzer than any team I have seen in quite a while. And Davidson and Jerome will play on Wednesday night. Then Thursday, of course, we've got the doubleheader in the regionals, Division 4 at Butler. Tri-Village against Danville. Tri-Village 24-2. Danville's 20-5. Loramie is 25-1. And Cincinnati Country Day 19-5. And then Friday, we'll have our Division I Girls Regional Championship. Saturday, we'll have our Division 4 Girls Regional Championship. And we don't want to select the New Knoxville girls. They are in the regional semifinals Thursday night at 8 o'clock at Elida High School.
I think you can make the case that this is probably the most compelling week of high school basketball in the 12-year history of this website. That I can't ever remember, just starting with tomorrow night, the anticipation of Tri-Village playing, of Botkins playing because they're defending champs. Jackson Center is such a defensive juggernaut for anybody to have to match up against. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be fun to see how Springfield comes up against that, how those three teams break out. Your game that you have up in Wapakoneta, there's going to be a few bumps and bruises in that. And then, of course, as you said, all that action that's going on in Central Ohio tomorrow night, which is mega basketball. And then the way the rest of the week clears out, with the regional round of the girls tournament, you don't want to miss a day of this because you really do wish there was more time to savor that those games could be. It's almost a shame you got three games in one night, if you know what I mean, because that's you do wish you had a little bit more time just to enjoy it.
Yeah. Well, I know this. If that St. Henry and Marion Local game is as physical as Minster and Marion Local, they might want to give shoulder pads out. Peyton Oddie got in a jump ball scrum with a young man from Minster the other night on the baseline, and that young man from Minster flipped Peyton around like a lot of teams would have liked to have gotten to Peyton when he was the quarterback of the Flyers state championship football team. So that one will be a bruiser, and we will see if St. Henry can pull another upset, because certainly if you take out top-seeded New Bremen, there'd be nobody that you'd think you couldn't take down. But I happen to think Marion Local is underseeded at number 4, and Kurt Gettemiller, he will have his Flyers ready. And St. Henry, they got more left-handed players than I've ever seen on a high school basketball team. Sonny, they got 3 3-point shooters who are lefties, and they've got some other nice players to go with them. So St. Henry's playing well at the time of year when you want to play well, right here in the postseason.
Think about sports being an activity of cruel ironies, if you will, because how many times this year have you seen high school players shoot a 3-point shot, make the 3-point shot, and go down the court, flashing to the bench, flashing to the crowd, the 3-point shot, and then the irony of basketball is you lose a tournament game because you hit 14 of 30 free throws. Yeah. Now, you give it this, but you lose the game at the free throw line. And how many times have we seen that this year? And I hasten to say, and I've written this for years, the little things help you win. It's the little things. It's the free throws. It's the boxing out. It's the rebounds. It's all those things are a lot more important, even though they go unnoticed, than this running down the court after you make a 3-point shot, because very few teams actually hit more than 30% of those shots from 3-point range in the first place. And I saw what happened to New Bremen the other night. I don't know if they had anybody do this or not, but I saw what happened to them earlier in the year when they played Versailles, and Versailles for that matter, and the little things. And I know Keith Brooks and some of those old coaches that watch this show will nod their head in agreement, saying, and there was a time and there was a day when, it's substance, that won you and got you to the next round over just living for that moment and that one opportunity to exalt yourself over a 3-point shot or a dunk or something like that.
Yeah, no doubt. And free throws, you got to make them. You're stabbing me in the heart, because my daughter's team had the front of 2 1-and-1s in the fourth quarter. It could have salted it away the other night and missed them both. But it's interesting how that worked. We have 4 seniors in our starting lineup, and each senior had a shot they believe they should have made that could have made the difference in that game. And you live with those regrets, but the memories outlast the regrets. And I just enjoy this time of year because it's so much fun for me to watch kids compete. I just want to run through a couple people I've been just supremely impressed with so far. And this is not a comprehensive list. I mentioned to Coach Siegel, Austin Miller from Bradford. That's just a really, really fun player to watch. Just so competitive. Never got down during a game filled with adversity for Bradford. I love watching Carter and Jacob Plyman play for Botkins. I just love watching Botkins play. They really D up. Phil Groves has got them playing D. Jackson Center, of course, plays great defense. Camden Reese with a big basket at the buzzer to get Jackson Center past Fort Loramie. And I felt bad for those Fort Loramie kids because they just played their hearts out in their first round win, or the win that I covered there at Piqua. They were so good, and they'd beaten Jackson Center twice. And I thought, well, there's no way you can beat Fort Loramie given how they're playing. And that's the capricious nature of tournament basketball. I'm also super impressed with Dave Borchers at Russia. Dave Borchers is really a guy who was so complimentary of Botkins, but also in a lopsided win over Mississinewa Valley, really kept his team under control when things got a little bit ugly with the Mississinewa crowd. And, so obviously, you have to be impressed with just the 3-point range of a Riley Sagaster. She can step out there like 2 feet, 3 feet beyond the line and hit that shot. So it's really fun to watch high school athletes compete at this time of year. And by no means is that a comprehensive list, but it's just some people that have stood out to me as I have covered games here in the past week, and look forward to covering them in the next 3 weeks with girls regionals, girls state tournament, and then boys state regionals and boys state tournament.
Yeah, and ditto. I'll give my own short list, and as you say, you're going to leave somebody off that list. But kids that I've seen this year,
I know who I left off.
That just play hard every night.
I left off Ava Schultes from Fort Loramie. I made the comment to Carla on Saturday. Ava's still wearing her knee brace. She came back late last year from a volleyball injury, and I'm watching her. And I said to Carla after the game, and I said this to Ava too. I said, I've never seen a player in a knee brace spend as much time on the floor as you. She is a go-getter. And, she's a little undersized for the position that she plays for Loramie. and she'll battle. I know that if they get to that matchup against Megan Downing and Tri-Village on Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, let me mention a few here myself that have impressed me over the year. Parker Penrod, the young sophomore guard from Troy Christian. I'm impressed this year with how hard he plays, and every opposing coach that I've talked to about them say almost universally they pay him compliments for his competitive zeal on the court. David Holman, you're familiar with David Holman because of football in New Bremen. Maybe not the best shooter, maybe not that, if you want to talk about the outside shot, if you want to talk about a deficiency here or there, but nobody plays harder, competes harder than him. Peyton Ottey, you just mentioned a few minutes ago at Marion Local, would certainly be in that category. I thought some of the kids I saw this year, like Gavin Garlitz from Tip City, came out and played hard every night and gave them their kids, their teams a chance to play. And and you picked Connor Stonebreaker from Versailles being another one. Jaden Liddon from Versailles this year, on that list. And you've already cherry picked a couple of the girls that I would have said. Ava Schultes for one. Certainly Riley Sagaster, you mentioned her, but there are so many kids that impress you throughout the season just because the joy of competition. And again, you can't take that for people who've never understood the value of that in public school education. You can't get that in a book. You can't get that you can't get that anywhere except out there between the lines, taking your lumps and bruises. I guess to refute my own argument about 74-6, sometimes that's the only way you learn, but is to get beat. I don't know if it takes 68 points to do it, but these are kids, that are going to grow up well for these experiences they're having this week and beyond. And I'm like you, Bruce, I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, and it's hard to see them lose their last game. I'm a little tender in that area because I just dealt with that with my senior daughter. It was hard to watch, like Cece Borchers and Ella Haney of Russia. I think Cece might be back. I think Ella Haney is a senior for Russia. But as my daughter said to me when we stayed up for a couple hours after their overtime loss in the district finals, he said, Dad, this really stinks. Only one team ends a year happy. And I said, yeah, that's right. But that's life too. You learn from the losses and you learn from the wins as well. So it will be fun for us. We are privileged to follow not just teams and coaches, but communities as they follow their teams throughout the tournament. And Sonny will be at UD tomorrow night for the triple header. I'll see all you Marion Local and St. Henry folks up at Wapak. And Mr. Folks, do you have some Reader Speaks comments or anything else?
I don't have a Reader Speaks comment, but I don't want to leave coaches out of that list we were just talking about. Oh, yeah. Just really quick, pay some attention if you haven't already at the Scott Elkerts, at the Travis Swanks, at the Josh Sagasters, at the Carla Siegels, at the Paul Bremages, and the people like that to prepare these kids, the Ray Zawadzkis, the Adam Tuies, the people that we talk about all year long, and how important they are to the development of your kids. If you are fortunate enough to have a child playing for one of the great coaches, football, basketball, baseball in this area, I don't know if you can quantify how big, the importance of that is, and what the return on investment is for them 5 years, 15 years, 50 years from now as adults and leaders in the community in this country. That's where it comes from. It doesn't come. Math and English helps, but you can't get what they got from a book.
I second that wholeheartedly. So you and I both love high school sports. That's what PressProsMagazine.com is about. We appreciate all our sponsors. We appreciate all of you watching. Follow us on Instagram, Press Pros Magazine. Our Facebook page, of course, is the same. Our Twitter site is at Press Pros Mag. We will reward in the next day or two our February $50 Layman's gift card giveaway. Our daily update sponsor, the Layman's Lowdown, is, of course, Layman's Hardware, an old-time general store in Kidron, Ohio. You can shop online there all the time, 24/7 at lehmans.com. And when you use the promo code PressPros10, you'll get 10% off. Please use our promo code so they know that we directed you to their outstanding website and outstanding store, which you can visit if you're ever up in the Kidron area, which is 4 miles south of Route 30, just a little bit east of Worcester. With that, we wish you well. We thank you for joining us tonight. You can catch the replay on our social channels or on our YouTube channel. We thank Carla Siegel. We wish all of our teams well, and we will see you out and about at the games. And until we do, have a great evening. Good night, everybody.
Truman has gone to bed.
Truman has gone to bed.